is Planning Board for June 28th, 2023. Good evening, everyone. Todd, let's go ahead and do a attendance.
Sure, I'll begin a roll call. I will begin with Chairman Gore.
Here.
Mr. Romer.
Here.
Mr. Lau.
Here.
Very good. Mr. Grenner.
Here.
And Mr. Nayland. I'll mark him as absent at present. Okay, we have 4 or 5 present, sir.
So Todd, I think first item up is town planner reports. Go ahead and hear that.
So just very quickly, I'll have you know that we met with BSC and the master plan. Also have been in communications with the members of BSC group relating to their most recent deliverable, which isn't quite where we'd like it to be, to put mildly. Aside from that, I've also been researching other grant opportunities as well as constructing additional language, some of which I've already sent to you before relating to the 81Q provision. I've assembled that language, keeping in mind area communities and analogous communities that have similar provisions existing in place, so that we will be keeping abreast with our peers when it comes to roadways in as of yet incomplete subdivision developments. I would like to arrange a public hearing to have that language decided upon and acted upon by the board, and hopefully put into the subdivision rules and regulations, so that way I can get it over to MAPC and other state level authorities and have it codified within our rules and regulation. On top of that, while we're under the hood, as it were, I would like to see us revise and revisit our fee schedule for applications that come before the board, notably costs for mailings. As you know now, we only charge about $6 for certified mailing when it comes to abutters. That cost is only a little bit more than about half of what it actually costs to mail out certified mail nowadays. Now it's around $11. So as of now, we should bring it back up from the 6 now to something closer to 11 or 12, ideally. So that way it'll be a little bit more future resistant for coming applications. Aside from that, all is well, but I'll keep you up to date when it comes to matters of us expecting reports back from the DPW chair relating to delinquent subdivisions, as well as other language that I think would behoove us to discuss.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
So the first item tonight is the continued special permit hearing for Michael Spengler of United Cultivation for a permit for a retail marijuana establishment. And so, Mr. Spengler.
Hi, how you doing?
Good evening. First off, I want to apologize for the kind of the mix-up with the dates earlier. I apologize for the delay with that. And so.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we understand things happen, and it's a process for sure. We've been down this path a few times, so we understand.
Okay, so if you don't mind, kind of giving us a little background about yourself and kind of what you're proposing. Yeah,
I'll kick things off a little bit. So, for those of you I haven't met, my name is Michael Spengler. I'm a co-founder, partner in a marijuana establishment called United Cultivation. United Cultivation has vertically integrated licensing in the state of Massachusetts. We are applying for a special permit for a marijuana retail establishment at 476 Main Street in Bolton. This would be our 3rd retail license. We've been operating a cannabis dispensary in Ashby, Mass since March of 2021. And we are in the final stages of opening up a 2nd location in Groton. So we've requested our post-provisional license inspection there. We're waiting on the state. I can go into a little bit later if you'd like kind of the licensing process, but there is a little bit of a back and forth before getting open. But our construction and build out is completed in Groton, and we're waiting for our inspection to continue on that process. So excited about that. We also have cultivation licensing. We have an indoor license, which is non-operating, and we have an outdoor cultivation license in Ashby. So we have an outdoor cultivation field, and we have a product manufacturing license where we're building that facility out currently. That will give us the opportunity to make our own products, such as vape cartridges, edibles, beverages, etc. So United Cultivation began in 2018. I spent the prior 20 years of my career in the semiconductor distribution industry. And the 5 years prior to 2020, I actually ran as general manager the Future Electronics location in Bolton.
Okay.
So I was responsible for that operation for the Miller family in Montreal. So familiar with the town. My partners in this, my primary partners are the Fana family. I'm not sure if they're going to join tonight, but we've been leasing the space at 476 since October. And as you see from the package we submitted, this was, I believe, the first special permit application in Bolton under the new format. The application was, I think, well over 200 pages long, so pretty involved.
210.
Yeah, 210. Yeah. So I have with me tonight from Dillis and Roy, who's our engineering firm. They've done some work in the town prior. I have Ryan Proctor. Ryan will step through kind of a little bit of an overview of the application. He helped put it together on behalf of United Cultivation and Dillis and Roy. And I also have Daniel Lasavita from Vanessa Associates, and they're a traffic transportation and engineering planning company, independent wise. So I would think that maybe, unless anyone has any immediate questions, we can let Ryan kind of just give a broad overview of the application, and then we can hand it over to Daniel to maybe address and give like a high-level overview of the findings in his traffic review. And then from there, open it up to any questions. In addition to being a partner, my title in the company is Chief Executive Officer. So I have responsibility on behalf of the ownership group to oversee day-to-day activities. So there's limited things that I'm not aware of, So I'm very familiar with our operations. I've been the team member that's been out front of application processes, license processing, working with the state. So this is what I do full time now. So I never thought I'd probably be in this industry if you asked me 10 years ago, but it's a good industry. As you know, it's growing. There are now 307 retail outlets in Massachusetts that have commenced. To put that in perspective, when we opened in early 2021, we were number 100. So there's been 3 times the amount since we've been in it. There is a little bit of oversupply at the moment, but I think the industry is going through a little bit of a natural correction. And one thing that's, I think, telling of the Northeast and of Massachusetts is in this industry, there's many multi-state operators, so very large companies. But in Massachusetts, the multi-state operators, they actually control less than about 20% of the revenue, because I think they underestimated a little bit the local flair and business acumen of many business owners. But it's a really good industry, and the revenue, I think, run rate this year for the top line is about $1.5 billion in Massachusetts alone. So with that, Ryan, I'm not sure if you're prepared to jump in. I think you might still be on mute, but if you want to step through maybe some of that application, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yep. Thanks, Mike. So Ryan Proctor from Dillis and Roy. Like Mike said, we all pulled together the application for the special permit at 476 Main Street, which is the Country Covered Building, right next to 495. So the application of those 210 pages, a lot of it is documentation relative to the actual facility. So emergency procedure plan, security overview, sort of the logistics of the retail establishment. So if there's any specific questions on that at the end, I'd encourage you to reach out to Mike on that. The narrative that we submitted, I went right through every requirement of the special permit application process for Bolton and broke down how we were meeting those regulations. Similarly, I did the same thing specifically for the marijuana special permit rules and regulations. So again, there's several pages there. If you have I won't go through every one individually, but if you have specific questions on that, I'm happy to address any of those. The one portion of the application I wanted to highlight and just go through quickly is the waiver request list. There are some requirements for the special permit rules and regulations specific to marijuana that we felt weren't necessarily applicable to this application, given that we're using an existing developed building and site. So this was within the application in section 4, all of which pertain to a stormwater management report, the providing a photometric plan, landscaping plan, sedimentation control plan, and building elevation plan, and outdoor lighting details. So those 7 waivers that we requested are all relative to those items. And again, since this is a previously developed site with an existing building, which we have very little external modifications proposed, we thought that we're respectfully asking you to waive those requirements.
Yeah, so I did read through the waivers, and I agree with a lot of them that have to do with landscape and all that. The one that I wanted to talk a little bit about is kind of the lighting plan. And it really kind of, it goes hand in glove with sort of the parking about it. I mean, I don't know how people on the board kind of want to go through this. In general, I think the project, it makes sense for that location. I mean, my biggest concerns are, the traffic, obviously, which I know you guys, I read through the traffic study, so that's great. The parking is the other big one that I kind of want to talk about there at the site, just because it's bad already, and I imagine it's only going to get worse once we have. So they're basically, we're talking about, about roughly 200-ish customers on an average day. Is that kind of what 444 vehicle trips sort of means in your language?
I would put that around a good assumption, based on traffic we see patterns in Ashby, et cetera.
Yep. Okay. And so kind of so let's take the parking first, because the lighting, I don't want to speak for other members of the board, but the lighting and where people are going to park are the biggest things. So are you going to try to be funneling people over to the right side of that building on kind of the side of it?
Yeah, so I want to say, I don't have it pulled up in front of me of the file, but when you're looking at the front of the building, there's 2 spaces facing the building, and then everything to the right, that will be reserved for United Cultivation.
Okay, so that
I can share my screen, Mr. Chair, if that'd be helpful.
Yeah, that would be excellent. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've been working with Jane, trying to understand the potential opportunity to have reserved spaces for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see, if you look at those last 2 spots in the front of the building, and then everything to the right as it wraps around the building, including the handicap parking, would be United Cultivation specific.
Okay, so there's 6 spots kind of over on the rightmost side, 4 against the wall. Are those existing spots right now?
Yes.
These are all existing.
Okay, and are these all? Do they have lines on them? Are they kind of demarcated?
They are marked out. Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I believe there's lines there, and those spots traditionally, from my view, is a lot of times when I enter the property, like they're pretty empty. Like it doesn't appear like most people are kind of hugging to the front or the left, but those are, I believe, are demarked.
Yeah, the people who park on the right seem to be divorced people exchanging their kids on the weekend, is what I find.
Highway change, yeah.
The highway exchange, yeah. And so, but yeah, those other, the other 2 spaces have been vacant for a while, so we tend to not see people parking over there. So basically, you're looking at, that looks like about 12 spaces. Is there parking going behind the building? I haven't actually had a chance to go over there and take a look at it.
There is a rear parking lot. I'm not sure if it's on this one, but yeah, see there. So employee parking will be in the rear. There's kind of a raised lot in the back.
Oh wow, I didn't realize how much parking there was.
Yeah, there's a significant amount of parking. So employee parking will be to the back, which will be minimal, but there is not a desire to flow traffic around the building by any means, just because of the nature of the setup. But there is ample parking on I think the property itself, I'm not sure if you have the number. I think it's well over 70 spaces.
I think we do. Yeah, it's I have it in the table over here.
Yeah, 66 I think was the number that I saw.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Close to 70, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically 12 spots for kind of normal operations. Do you think that, based on what you've seen in Ashby, do you think that's going to be enough for what you have?
Yeah, I believe it is. We have a very large parking spot and parking area in Ashby, and it's very minimal during the day in traffic. The transaction time and count time, I would say close to 70% of our customers pre-order online. So
Okay.
they pull in, they check into security, they bypass any sales activity and go to the counter. And they get a notification when their order's ready. So there's very limited waiting. So they're in and out.
Okay.
There are browsers and people that come in that are looking for consultation or education, and they may stay longer, but the average time for those interactions is maybe 5-10 minutes tops. So
Okay. I mean, because the concern is if those spots kind of fill up, then you've got, I don't know if people are naturally going to want to pull around to the back of it, which I mean, again, I don't know what it looks like back there. Can cars kind of safely drive back there?
Yeah, there's plenty of room to get around.
And there's no sign saying don't, no entrance, anything like that. It's fine.
Yeah, I do not believe there's any restrictive signage on the exterior for parking or vehicle traffic.
Okay. And so for the lighting that exists, kind of where those 4 spots are and where the 6 spaces are, what is existing there right now?
There's some pole lighting on the corner. Sorry, we don't have it shown on this plan, but I have a street view I can pull over.
Okay.
So this would be the corner of the building. There is some stand lighting all along the frontage of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Poles here, so we're intending to leave that and not modify that as part of the application. So
Okay. While we're looking at this picture, not to jump ahead, but so there's going to be 2 entrances for this, right? Is it the leftmost and the rightmost, and the dog watch stays as is?
Yes. So the center entry that you see for dog watch is a stairwell to the 2nd floor.
Yep.
So the traffic pattern for customers coming in, the door on the right is going to be the entry door. You would enter there. There will be a vestibule, what we call a man trap, with a security window. And before they can enter the facility, they have to validate their ID. Then they're entered in. It's going to be a little bit of a horseshoe pattern, and they're going to exit through the left door. The left door will not have an exterior handle on it, so it'll be exit only, and that one will be enter only.
Okay. Okay. And so you think that is there street pole lighting over where the 6 spaces on the right are right now?
there is 3 here, so 2 on the corners and then 1 in the middle.
I see.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else on the board, if you want to jump in, any concerns about lighting, parking? This is the time to raise them.
Yeah, just one quick question on my end. So it does seem like there's adequate overspill parking in the additional parking lot above in the rear of the building. I guess my one worry with that is that it's not discoverable. So there's no signage that sort of points anybody to that location. So in fact, I didn't know about it until I took a trip myself to take a look to see what the parking situation was like. So would it make any sense to have some small signage that just says overflow parking, behind rear of building or something like that?
That doesn't seem to be too much of a challenge. Something that states additional parking in rear or something along those lines. That doesn't seem to be an issue.
That would be great.
And just so you know, too, when I met with Chief Nelson, there was a desire to have, especially around the exterior of the building. Obviously, we can't envelope the entire building with our security, but on that right side, the camera angles cover pretty much as you wrap around the whole front and rear of the building, where the rear entries are. So there's good ample security camera footage in the rear as well.
Does the Bright Clean building right now, is there like an interior entrance between Country Cupboard and that?
No, it's demised.
Okay.
Yeah. There's 2 exterior rear doors, rear access doors, because that is 2 units. That's unit 3 and 4. There's a demising wall between 3 and 4, which we will be removing. So that will all be 1 unit when we're done. So that'll be 1 unit, but there's no other entry points for other units.
Anyone else on the board have comments on the parking or lighting?
Not here.
Okay.
I have a comment or a question, actually, I guess. On the on those parking spots on the right, I was looking at the traffic study, it seems like a lot of the business is going to come in at certain times of day, kind of matching the rush hour traffic a little bit. As those spots on the right fill up and people are either backing up or trying to get out, and people are also trying to get into the parking lot, was there any study or was it part of the traffic plan to look at how the internal to the property traffic flow would go during those peak times? I guess one of the concerns I might have would be that the entrance gets blocked up from those parking spots right there, causing a backup on the main road, potentially.
So I'll kind of butt in here unless Mike or Ryan want to say anything else. For the record, my name is Daniel Civita. I'm a traffic engineer with Vanessa and Associates. As Mike had said, we are the traffic consultants. So we did look at on-site access and circulation within the site as a part of our study. And I got a brief presentation where I can kind of go through our recommendations. One of them mainly being that behind perpendicular parking, there should be a minimum of 23 feet of space to allow for vehicles to both enter and exit the parking spaces. All throughout the site, that is consistent, and that's also found here. And we, beyond that recommendation, didn't have any major qualms with traffic flow, especially on this half of the site. I know there's a Dunkin's and a Subway, I think, down on the left side of the building. But over on this side, we didn't find any problems with the site plan.
Are you making the assumption that everyone who comes here comes into the right-hand entrance? I mean, because one of the flow problems is that people come in on the kind of the Country Cupboard Dunkin' entrance there, and then they have to pull through the lot of. That's kind of where the bad spot is. Those lots the spots right in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
So was kind of your assumption to get people to come into the right side of it or to use both entrances?
We didn't make any assumption when we looked at access or circulation. How we kind of looked at it is if the customer or the person entering is familiar with the site, they'll know, oh, maybe it's a bad time to enter at this driveway, or it's a bad time to exit that driveway. If they're leaving in the morning, everyone's going to be leaving Dunks. Maybe I'll go use the right entrance, or vice versa. So there wasn't an assumption made, and Mike and Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there will be any specific signage saying United Cultivation customers use this entrance, so on and so forth.
Correct.
Mike, I wasn't sure if Jane Hood was gonna join tonight. Like, did she have any concerns with kind of the traffic disruption for Country Cupboard?
No, she has seen the traffic report, and I think she was comfortable and confident in it. We haven't had any discussions, or she hasn't shared any concerns with the additional traffic flow as a result. When we look at, obviously we know there will be more cars coming into our business than the previous tenants.
Yep.
But in the conversations, she seems satisfied with kind of the work done by Vanessa.
And the path that goes behind the building there, is that wide enough for two cars?
It's limited. It's a one car passage in my opinion.
Okay. So, I mean, I think one of the things that we'd want to have then is, I mean, are there any signs right now that force this to be a one-way?
I do not believe so. No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. So I think that would definitely be desirable to have here. Turn that into kind of a one-way. That way is, we talk about kind of the flow of traffic as they come in. If these spots are full and they have to get funneled to the back of it, they're not contending with other cars coming around the other side.
Yeah, Mike, I think the traffic flow is pretty critical here as somebody who's lived here for a very long time and come in down 117 or 495 heading easterly as well as heading westerly. I've ended up having to do a bit of dancing with cars coming in the opposite direction directly in front of the country cupboard. You combine that with somebody backing out of the front parking spaces, it really gets quite exciting. No impact yet, but anything that can be done to improve the traffic flow in that area, and as you point out, having definite directional flow behind the building is pretty critical. You know, I don't know exactly what the assumptions that have been used in terms of comparative business analysis and timing for the Vaness analysis, but I suspect that this facility was chosen because it's going to be mighty popular. It was a great business decision, but we got to follow up on the implications.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, so I would, and I don't know if that's a decision that, you know, again, the Hoods have to make about their property in general. I don't know if other people are used to coming down from that top lot and back and coming out around the right side. But I think that's probably our biggest concern. I mean, you know, as there's plenty of parking there, it's just all in the wrong, it's all in the wrong places.
Yeah.
But so
yeah, I can talk with Jane about some of the recommended or desired opportunities. I know there's been lots of discussions on parking and traffic at that site for a very long time. So we'd be more in tune with some of that, but I can definitely have that discussion with her.
Okay. Yeah. I think that, again, kind of the, and this isn't right. We're not in 2020, 2021 here where it's like, you know, it's going to be insane and we have to shuttle bus people over. But you know, to Bob's point, this is already a busy location. And I think, you know, this is going to add a lot of extra traffic to it. So while it's not going to be peak, you know, peak marijuana here, I think it still will be pretty busy, and we want to do whatever we can to get that traffic flowing properly. I mean, the thing we really want to avoid is people coming in from the right and crossing over to Dunks, and people coming in from the left and crossing over to your place, right? I mean, and then people backing out of the spots. It's just a disaster. So, I mean, anything we could do to
my experience has been that.
Go ahead, Bob.
People go into and exit the back parking lot on the easterly side of the building. And it seems to me that having directional flow on the west side into the back parking lot with exit out the east side of the back parking lot makes a whole lot of sense. You know, to have a backup with people trying to get in and out of the westernly end they'll even add to the congestion, I would think.
Well, and especially for those 4 spots on the left, because you're already directionally pulled in that way. I mean, we really don't want those people trying to do some, you know, crazy 3-point turn to back out of that spot and then pull out the right entrance, the west entrance. So yeah, so I don't know, like that. I think that's one of my biggest points of concern, and maybe you know, Mike and Ryan, if you could kind of put together some proposals for what that would look like.
Yep, we can take care of that.
Okay.
I'll talk with Jane. I'll probably talk with her tomorrow just to kind of get an understanding of her opinions on flow as well.
Yeah.
Back there for sure.
And I know you said that there's delivery entrances in the back right now. So I don't know if anyone existing needs to come out that right side today. But I guess just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that brings up, Mike, to your point, and it just didn't occur to me. Since the delivery entrances are in the back, is there sufficient width in that back access to the west side for a car to get around somebody delivering? Or is that going to be a backup, or should contingency be made for that?
I believe so. Where that cursor is on that site plan right now is a second floor egress. but
Right.
underneath that egress is the 2 entry doors.
Okay,
Right in front of that, I believe there's an opportunity to put a striped parking spot just below where you see that indentation in the middle of the building. I think there's ample room for someone to get by. And the deliveries are typically, the state requires a delivery operator to have one person stay in the vehicle and one bring the product in. So a delivery can be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how long or how much product's being received. So
okay,
I think there's enough room to establish a spot for them to park. They couldn't park directly in front of that deck and leave the vehicle there. It wouldn't be a good spot. They've also, in our facility in Ashby, we have a much more room for deliveries, but I've seen in many cases where once the product enters the building, the delivery vehicle drives around and parks in a traditional spot, and then the guy walks out. Like usually that's what happens.
Okay.
yeah, as
and you-
long as that's made clear to the
Yes.
FedEx, UPS,
Well,
whatever,
I think the report says you use kind of unmarked vehicles. So I don't know if that means like Ford Transit vans that are kind of smaller, or are these kind of like bigger delivery vehicles?
Most of them are transit, sprinters, things like that. The
Okay.
state requires any transportation of cannabis to be either by a licensed product manufacturer or cultivator who has their own vehicle, or we have to use a licensed third-party transporter. And they're all nondescript vehicles. They're so nondescript that they become descript because they're all just white vehicles that you see driving into the facility. But they're all equipped with cameras and GPS tracking and everything
Yep.
else. So,
Okay.
I do not anticipate us to have our own vehicles by the time this facility would open. But over time, as we have multiple operations, it's probably going to make sense for us to have internal transportation. But that's not something we have today.
Sure. But these probably won't be big UPS trucks, I guess.
No, they're not. It's very rare for you to see
Yep.
anyone deliver anything large.
Okay. No, great. Yeah. So I mean, if you could, delineate a spot in the back there and kind of rope it off, and then maybe just kind of show what the width would be, kind of where that spot is compared to where traffic would be, coming around to the side of it. It does look like there's plenty of room though. Okay. So that's kind of anything else on parking or lighting from the board, or anyone else? Todd, do you have any concerns, thoughts, comments?
I would like to ask a question of Mr. Spangler to the chair, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Spangler, do you have any rough estimate on when you'll be receiving your commence operations letter for this particular site?
So in order for us to, well, there's a couple things that need to occur. So in order for us to begin the normal process to begin demolition and construction in the space is to have an architectural plan review approved by the state. So we have to pre-present to them the layouts, the security plan, et cetera. We have all that prepared. We were kind of waiting to get through this first pass of hearings to understand kind of the tone and likelihood. We've been doing this now, so we will preemptively, if all appears to be on track, we will start pulling permitting for demo and construction. During that time, we must have our special permit to request any post-provisional license inspection.
Gotcha.
So when we have the special permit, we have to have our build out. I'll give you an example. In Groton, we requested our post-provisional license inspection on May 25th, I believe was the date, if that was a weekday. And we just heard this week their response, and what they first request is a document set. So they want to see all your certificates of occupancy, all your insurance, that, they go through this quick document scan. Then we'll have a discussion with them via like Zoom, where we'll walk them through the space. We'll double check on some things, and then they come out for a site visit. So to give you the scope, Groton took a little longer. The build out, we think here will be much more compressed because we've just done it. We're going to do the same exact thing. We started the build out and demo in October, and we think we'll be open by August, but we think we can compress that schedule here, depending on how fast we move through this process, by a couple months. So I would anticipate, all according to like Q1 of next year, having an opportunity to be looking at opening.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
All my
Okay.
questions.
Okay. So this is kind of more to the board. So based on kind of the, discussing the lighting, and I guess, going back to if people are using kind of the back parking lot, is the flow, I assume the flow of traffic is to not have them walk around this side of the building, but walk around kind of the east side to get to the front. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, there's no delineated path, I think, now that we've discussed. It is a bit of a walk from the top parking lot to the entries of the retail establishments.
Yeah.
Any packaging leaving the facility is in a bag, right? So there's no visible product. So it is quasi discreet nowadays. I know there's a lot of concern about the public being able to see what's happening, but most of the stuff is in exit bags that's, descript and
yeah. No, I'm not worried about that. I mean, I'm more worried about people having to, people exit the facility and they parked up in the back lot. Now, how do they get back there? Are they walking around through the back of the building? Maybe you don't want people doing that. I don't know. Something to kind of.
Yeah, we got to think about it. Yeah, I have a lot of confidence in the existing parking being ample for customer flow, but there's always that opportunity. Someone parks in the back or visits another one of the facilities while here.
Yep. So kind of, back to the waivers, for the lighting plan, which again is the landscape stuff, I'm all fine with. Members of the board, you guys can, if you have questions or concerns about waiving some of those things, we'll talk about it in a second. But the lighting, having the lighting kind of shown somewhere, whether it's a full, photometric plan. I do want to see where the lighting's going to be. Because I think the assumption that everyone's going to be parked just in those, 10 or 12 spaces at night during the winter is not accurate. So seeing where the lighting is going to be and kind of how you want the traffic flow to the pedestrian flow to go would be useful. I don't think we really call out, pedestrian flow in that, but at least kind of show where the lights are somewhere on the plan.
We can add the existing lighting. That's not a problem.
Okay. Including any lighting in the back, and if we feel that additional lighting is, I assume you need to have a fair amount of lighting in the back for security purposes, if that's where the deliveries are and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, most of the cameras are all infrared. They can see at night, all that stuff.
Okay. Okay. So as far as the other waivers go, so I'm just going to run through them real quick. So section 3.1H, stormwater management report. I'm fine waiving that. This is an existing site. So the photometric plan, and I think the photometric plan is really more is that for light pollution or is that for light planning?
I think the intent of that typically, if we're doing a new site, would be to show the lumens of the light and how they would be projecting onto abutting properties. But again, we're for the parking lot at least, and we're intending to use the existing lighting that's there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're primarily used for neighbors, especially if it abuts a residential.
Okay.
If it does become important to incorporate additional lighting, I certainly would like to know a little bit about it. We want to minimize certainly light pollution. Safety is absolutely paramount, but at the same time, we don't want to turn it into a beacon of the neighborhood, as it were.
Yeah.
One additional question I have is there does seem to be a path from the upper parking lot that may funnel, potential customers down to the section of road that is near the retaining wall. So that to me might be in cases where I guess customers are already being, going to the upper lot, that means that there's probably a lot of traffic there to begin with. So I think definitely the customer flow around the building is definitely something I'd like to learn a bit more about. Also I guess the condition of that pathway, if customers are going to be taking that, is that in good working order? Is there lighting by the path as well?
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at that. I think, like Michael said, this upper parking lot area is used for employees typically, and there's some light in there, but we're happy to take a look at the pathway and check out that condition.
Because these are all spots at the bottom of the, right? Are these?
Yeah.
These are parking spaces as well.
So
Yes, all the
those,
way
yeah, park
on the
spaces
side
there,
here,
and then all
on the
kind of,
side
those
here.
are all spots there. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So presumably people will be parking in those first before they went to the upper lot.
Yes,
That
so we
makes
do have.
sense.
Yes, we do have signs here that are proposed that are going to read United Cultivation Parking. So these designated spots here will be clearly marked as parking for this retail establishment,
Mm-hmm.
right up front when you drive in.
And like you said, I mean, maybe that's going to be adequate. I mean, I certainly know some of the places in Hudson that I drive by that used to be packed have very little, cars parked in there day to day. But it's our job as the board to kind of make sure that, for your busy times and whatever, that we're keeping people safe.
Sure.
Where they park and how they walk to your facility.
We'd love to have it an overwhelming demand where
Yeah.
it's hard to manage it, but it's become a little bit of like a steady trickle, right? I feel like that's kind of the notion from the early days where the lines were there.
Yep.
There's two competitors, one exit up, so there's definitely some competition now. So
Definitely. Yep. Okay.
One of my good friends is the town manager of Charlton, and he was present for that massive kerfuffle back a few years ago. It's nothing like it used to be, which is
yeah.
So going back to waivers, so the third one, landscape lighting, building elevation plan, sedimentation control plan, again, existing buildings, I think that's okay. Sedimentation control plan. So applicant requested a waiver for providing structure details, landscaping details, parking details, tabulations, and outdoor lighting details. So again, I'd have to look at what the actual requirement is there, but parking details and outdoor lighting details we're very interested in. So having those in some form shown here on the sheet, called out separately in the document, something to those lines, like we'd like to see that.
Understood.
Waiver from, number 6, section 4.9, waiver from landscape plan, that's fine. And building, number 7, building elevation plan. So I'm fine with all those. I do want to read through what the actual lighting and parking ones require. Like, we may not require the full amount of that, but again, something that just kind of that addresses the things we talked about here right now. Okay. So I know you had so anything else from the board, or I don't know if we had anyone join from the public. I didn't see. But if anyone else has.
So my concerns were just the wrapping around the building. Like, I don't know if coming from going towards the west side of the building, if you had a do not enter, but what about internally, security wise? I assume you can't have a back entrance for security. I mean, that'd be.
You mean from a customer flow?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. They like to have the state.
Right.
I believe I don't think there's any regulation against it, but we prefer to have flow coming through one central point for security reasons.
But like, I don't know if you talked about this with Chief Nelson at all, like potential break-ins at night. Like, is there like a secure room or something where everything is like?
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. So the regulations require us to keep all of the cannabis product in secured what they call like a vault structure. The vault structure has changed a little bit. It is not well, some people do have like old bank vaults, etc. We use in our vaults like a 5/8 sheetrock, 5/8 plywood, a metal lath, like et cetera, to kind of turn a room into a vault. All of the doors in the facility will have door access control. All of the access to the rooms will be dictated by role. So all the employees have key fobs, and that's how they get around the building. That's another reason why any pedestrian traffic coming from the rear isn't allowed, because they're mostly limited access areas. As it relates to off hours, we're required to have monitoring systems. So in the facility, there'll be glass break sensors, motion detectors. All of our cameras are required to keep 90 days of video for activity. And there'll be central monitoring that goes directly either to the police department, or if the police department's using a regional call center, that's how it will end up going. We've had in our existing operation weather incidents where like power goes out, we get notified, et cetera. Knock on wood, we've been fortunate. We haven't had any significant challenges to any other security. As it relates to cash, we use these cash recycling machines that you would see in a bank. They're bank rated vaults that are inaccessible. They're 1,200 pounds. And then any excess cash that's not in the machine is put in a safe that's located within the vault. So there are, I'm assuming over time, there's always people looking to do nefarious things, but I think the dispensaries, at least in Massachusetts, have become known as very secure locations. So I can speak to any of the other plans on the security. I did sit down with Chief Nelson. We went through all of the internal workings and external. He actually had asked us to add some additional cameras to the exterior to get some spots that he thought would be beneficial to have as you go around the building. And we since have upgraded and updated the plan, which is in this application. So
Yeah, so I saw that Chief Nelson had signed off on the
Yeah.
security report, so that was fine by me. Did you guys meet with the fire department at all?
Yes. We met together. He never sent the formal acceptance, but we talked through everything together as a group, and he appeared to be fine with everything. He had no real significant questions. There were some questions about, are we tapping into the existing fire monitoring system for the building itself, or are we going to be independent? And those are questions we're still working through.
Okay.
But it wasn't any risk or concern of his, or he was just generally curious.
Yeah. Todd, I would like to just kind of get just a letter from the fire department just saying, hey, we've reviewed this and all looks good.
Sure, just give me 1 second, write that down. And I'm going to be out tomorrow, but I'll send out the request tonight, and I should have it by Friday or Monday.
Okay. So we've kind of jumped around a little bit. So I guess the other thing to talk about is the traffic study. So Daniel, I don't know. So, we talked a little bit about the parking, but if you just kind of want to cover any highlights about, I read through the report and it seems pretty straightforward to me. It's clearly going to be more traffic than was there before. I think, said it's adding, up to, 2.5%, maybe 5% on the weekend. So
sounds like you're doing my job for me. And my computer is not liking what is happening. Can you see the PowerPoint?
I did for a moment.
Yeah, it's popping in and out.
There we go.
1 second. Let me stop the screen share. Let's try that again. What about that?
I don't see it.
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh,
No, it's thinking.
It
Yeah,
certainly is.
it's trying.
Is smoke coming out of your computer right now?
Did the hamster fall off the wheel? Check
It
out.
just might have. I'm over in Waltham, and we're finally getting the weather that you guys.
I can, if you were just trying to present the actual portion of the traffic plan. I can try to pull it up on my side. I don't know what you have in front of you.
Yep, no, it was just 4 slides. I also don't necessarily need it, but it could be handy to
Yeah.
just for people to visualize some
Do
numbers.
you want to send me the slides, Daniel, if you can't get it up?
Let's try one more time, and then I'll start to send them over. Yeah, it just really isn't liking it. All right, well, I will send it to Mike and do the presentation as well. But as you've heard, for the record, Daniel Civita, Vanessa and Associates, traffic consultants, the project. In general, our traffic study was prepared in consultation with MassDOT standards and the, sorry, just one sec, and the guidelines of the transportation planning and traffic engineering professions. The traffic volumes that we used were were counted in February of 2023, while schools were in regular session and were adjusted to account for seasonal fluctuations in traffic volumes. In this case, February volumes are roughly 3% below average month conditions. So whenever we used counts, we adjusted the actual measured counts up by 3% to be average month, consistent with what MassDOT requires. With that 3% adjustment in mind, we found that Route 117 carries approximately 15 to 16,000 vehicles on the course of an average weekday, and about 11 to 12,000 on a Saturday, so slightly less. We found that during the commuter peaks, so your peak hour between 7 and 9 a.m. and your peak hour between 4 and 6 p.m., it carries about 13 to 1,400 vehicles, and about 1,000 vehicles. Perfect. And about 1,000 vehicles during the Saturday midday peak hour, which is your peak hour between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Can anyone see this presentation I just popped up?
Yes,
Yes,
we can. Thank you very much.
Just let me know when I'm on the right side or not.
Yep, you're good. Good for now. I will let you know. There were no apparent safety deficiencies that were noted along 117 in the vicinity of the project site. We looked at MassDOT crash data to make that assessment, and lines of sight at the 2 driveways that serve the project site were found to exceed the recommended minimum distances for safe and efficient operation. And if you want to go to the next slide, Mike. So this, I think the chair had kind of briefly mentioned, but this is the trip generation summary for the project, the amount of vehicles that are going to come in and out of the project. So on an average weekday, we anticipate around 444 vehicle trips, or 222 vehicles. In this case, a trip is one way, so a vehicle entering counts as one trip and exiting is another trip. Then during the weekday, we broke it up. The weekday morning peak hour of the roadway and the weekday morning peak hour of the dispensary, they oftentimes occur at 2 different times, just because a lot of dispensaries aren't open from 7 to 9 a.m. So during the weekday morning of the roadway, we're looking at pretty much just employees arriving, deliveries, not customer trips. So that's why we only see 4 trips during that period. Then once we get to the weekday morning peak hour of the dispensary, so after 9, most of the time, in Mike, I don't know, 10 a.m. opening for this?
Yeah, there's required or stated hours. We are considering trying to see if getting some adjustment to those, but yeah, it appears we'll be open a few hours after the country cupboard actually opens, so maybe miss that morning traffic flow for the Dunkin' Donuts.
Can I ask? Can I ask? Do you know what the vehicle trips kind of existing for Country Cupboard are? Do you have that data?
I do not know off the. I don't believe we counted either of the driveways. I think we just kind of laid tubes down on 117 and counted vehicles along there. So I don't know the counts for any of the existing uses.
I mean, I'd be very curious. Is 222? Is that like a quarter of what Country Cover gets? Is it about the same? Is it more or less? You know what I'm saying?
I can speak to from what I've heard just in general conversation, but they are averaging, I think, probably 4 times this in their facility.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
That's just a swag answer, but
yeah.
And then to avoid repeating myself, the rest of the numbers are kind of there. 60 during the weekday evening peak hour, which does coincide with your commuter peak hour. People coming back from work, stopping at the dispensary, or going from home, picking things up and going back.
These were real numbers. Sorry, these were real numbers from an existing retail facility, but not your own, Mike. Is that right?
Yes.
Correct. Probably should have led with this. So the peak hour numbers, we had counted a couple years back, I think, during the big boom of in July 2022, the big boom of dispensaries, a similarly operating dispensary in Millbury. We then took the amount of trips generated by that Millbury dispensary, distilled that down to a trip rate per 1,000 square feet, which is consistent with how the ITE or the Institute of Transportation Engineers generates their trip rates, which we did use their trip rates for the weekday and Saturday numbers. So that's where those larger numbers come from. And then applied that rate per 1,000 square feet to the 2,100 plus minus square feet of this dispensary.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then, like I said, slightly more on a Saturday. And these numbers, what they really come down to, if we kind of take a step back and look at it, is the highest during the peak we anticipate is the Saturday midday peak hour, 61 trips. That's roughly one new vehicle on the road every minute. And when you're looking at a roadway that it carries 15 to 16,000 over the course of a day and 13 to 1,400 over the course of a peak hour, that 60 trips is not something that would be readily noticeable, readily apparent on the roadway. And these numbers do get smaller when we compare them to the trips that were generated by I believe it was a pet store and the Bright Clean, the dry cleaners. I didn't prepare a slide just because I didn't want to throw too many numbers at everyone, but the peak hour trips really come down to about 30 to 50. So it drops it to about 60, 70% of these numbers as being new trips. But even without that reduction, without the delta of vehicles, we're still looking at a relatively minimal impact. And then if you just go to the last page, please, Mike. This is really the important part of the study, which was our recommendations on site access and circulation. Most of these are already present on site or included within the site plans. The width of the driveways being a minimum of 24 feet, they're 30 to 40, I think now. The bullet point I mentioned earlier about 23 feet behind parking. The vehicles exiting the project site, they're already under stop control. That's not going to change. But the big thing is, which may help with, I know parking has been a bigger discussion. Something that we recommend for all dispensaries is a traffic management plan. Should be talked about with the police and should be incorporated at the beginning, right after the dispensary opens, just to kind of make sure that the store itself, but also the parking supply, also circulation within the site can handle the increase in cars. And the main thing with this is scheduling pickups. Mike had said roughly 70% order online. So a huge part of this traffic management plan is scheduling those pickups just to try to limit the amount of vehicles that all want to enter at once. And then that can be, pieces of it can be gradually pulled away the longer the store is in operation, and the police chief should be consulted on a regular basis just to kind of do a check-in and a realism check of, hey, do we need to continue to do this? Are we seeing that the parking can handle, so on and so forth. And that was very brief, not super technical, because it's a drivel to read, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, let me ask. I would agree that the amount of trips during peak hours and average are absolutely insignificant to the traffic on 117. However, the amount of traffic ingress and egress onto the site is over and above existing traffic. And to me, it's a little bit like an electrician specifying a 20 amp breaker and the homeowner coming in and saying, well, I got an 18 amp microwave, and boy, it'll work fine until they turn on the coffee maker. And I think we're in that situation where you got a lot of traffic there already. And particularly since a lot of the traffic is coming off 495 onto 117 for convenience purposes, goes into that facility and now decides to get back out onto 495. So now it's got to cross eastbound traffic to get in the westbound lane. And it ties up traffic unbelievably. So the issue in my mind is not the traffic per se, but the impact of turning at that location. And as somebody who travels down 117 in both directions, the number of times I have seen very close accidents with very frustrated people trying to exit the Country Cupboard facility and get back onto 495, zooming in between eastbound traffic is really getting to be very dangerous. And then any delta in that is going to make it significantly more so. So I'd really like to see that addressed in aggregate. What is the cumulative implication, not the delta?
Mm-hmm. That is something we can certainly look at. There may be, and I can talk with Mike and about acquiring additional counts at the driveways, certain things like that. But that is something that we can look at, not so much the impact on 117, like you had said, but within the driveway. And
well, it is impact on 117 because, I mean, if you look across the street at the cemetery there and the number of, what's happened to the side of the road there as people desperately try to get around, people turning left, coming westbound on 117 to get across eastbound traffic into the Country Cupboard, as well as what I just discussed about people coming eastbound and the impact of people trying to get out of the Country Cupboard, heading westbound back onto 117, but in a higher probability eventually very quickly crossing two lanes and getting on 495 northbound.
Well, and it's even worse than that, Bob, but it's a great point to bring up, is that the fact that we have two, entrances, which are both entrance exits, lots of times you will see two cars, one in each driveway, basically trying to make a left to get onto 117 East. So it's even worse. Now, I don't know what you guys can do about that. Like, I don't know if, if you made one, I'm not suggesting this, but if you made one entrance, one into an entrance and one into an exit and had flow go that way, I mean, that's a huge change. But to Bob's point, like it's a bad area already, and having more cars turning in and out of it, is definitely a safety hazard on the road there.
Yeah, one thing I can speak to in terms of managing customer access, these are levers that we'd rather not have to pull, but have the ability to pull. So when we do online, like when cannabis first opened, when you would go to a retailer and you would put an online order in, you would request for them to share, like you'd have a drop down for your pickup time.
Yep.
And early on, you would end up in situations where it's like 10 in the morning and you want to place your order, but the pickup time would be 5 in the afternoon because they were managing customer flow to make sure they only had X amount of pickups per month.
Yep.
Per hour. All of those dials are within our POS online ordering system. It appears to be a significant frustration on customer service, like when you're cruising through an area saying, hey, I'm going to throw an order in and go grab it. So we started with limiting in Ashby, and the traffic counts were so minimal that it didn't impact us. So we shut that off.
Okay.
So there are dials that you can start tweaking as time goes on, and that's part of that last paragraph that was presented in talking with Chief Nelson. Like, if we get into situations where it's abhorrent and there's just, it's overwhelming, like there's things we can do. You can shift in certain hours to certain online ordering only, right? So there's some things that we can do as a business. Not something we want to start as, but I do think there's ways to kind of buckle things down a little bit as we go.
Yeah, I understand that from a business point of view, but as a longtime project manager, I really, truly believe in detailed cumulative analysis and prevention. And even if you don't implement the prevention, you know what the implications might be, and you have a plan in place that we understand and can be triggered at an appropriate point. But I am very concerned about a commitment of a traffic management plan that is ex post facto once we get the problem.
Understood.
And kind of to that point, so the recommendation from Vanessa is traffic and parking management plan. Do you have that? Was that part of this application, or is that something you're going to submit separately?
That is something that we can pull together should the board wish. That was not a part of the traffic study. I don't think it was a part of this application, but that.
Yeah, the parking piece of it was addressed on the site plan with the listed spots.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how anybody else feels, but I sure would like to see that.
Nope. Agreed. Definitely.
And just to give you a broader perspective, I'm chair of the master plan committee, and one of the biggest issues right now in master planning, obviously, is congestion on 117. And 495 obviously contributes very heavily to that. But I got a report in day before yesterday that identified the highest accident and congestion points on 117, and it's mighty close to where we're talking about.
Yep. Okay, so those were kind of the major things that I wanted to cover tonight. Does anyone else on the board have things they want to discuss? Mike, do you and your team have questions or other things you want to bring up?
For me, it's more just understanding the process. So it appears, we have a few things we have to go back and kind of put together. Just curious about schedule, timing with the holiday, et cetera. Are these things that we can share or need to be presented in this forum? How do you foresee this moving forward? Just because we haven't dealt with the town planning yet involved.
So Todd, I don't know if we've set our schedule for the summer yet, but we'll meet once in July and once in August, I believe.
Yes.
And so, we definitely would like you to, it would be great if you present these things, ahead of time so we can read through them, but we would definitely like you to come back and kind of speak to the, like I said, I think the parking issues we can certainly address with signage and doing all that stuff. The comments that Bob brings up about, the egress and ingress on 117, I don't know what can ultimately be done about that, but like having an expert in transportation certainly look at it and make some recommendations would be helpful. Then I think the other thing was kind of the lighting and understanding the lighting plan, especially around the back of it.
Yep. Any questions on any of the operational aspects of the business? Not sure if there's anyone has any questions.
I didn't have too many. I mean, my first question was going to be, was this your first site? But if it's your third, then it sounds like you kind of got the thing down. And again, I mean, I know these plans were all put in place years ago, right, when there was a huge demand and all that. And I think we're living in kind of different times right now. But
Yeah, understood.
I guess my perspective on the traffic is that having worked with VHB and knowing a lot about Nest, you guys are the best in the business, and I think we're looking for creativity to try to mitigate a very, very challenging problem.
Understood.
To the chair, if I may.
yes,
Looking at the second Wednesday in July, that brings us to 7/12. The second Wednesday in August brings us to the 9th of August.
let me check my schedule real quick. So I will not be available the week of the 12th. So I would see if we could do the 19th instead. I don't know if that works for other board members.
That works for me.
My time is your time.
Okay. Let's
Actually, that week isn't good for me. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not. If I'm the only one, then fine. But I'm free the week after or the week before. But that week I'm not free.
The week 19th is the only one that works for me.
Okay. So yeah, let's
Sorry.
plan that one for the 19th. And if something comes up, maybe we can shift things around. But so Mike, does that work for your team?
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you, but we'll obviously go as we need it. I did have a question. It was less on our special permit, but when we did some major site plan review on another project, we were able to proceed with some of the state stuff with some conditions and findings that were kind of at the back end of the approvals. My biggest concern is constraining as, weeks clip by, they appear to go by pretty quick, but it also starts impacting like timeline and cost associated with leasing, et cetera.
Understood.
I feel pretty confident that we'll be able to articulate and share plans that meet what you're asking. I just what I'm eager to do is have a confidence level to some degree to start construction. That's something that is a business decision on our side, but I'm hoping that I don't know based on the holiday if we're going to be able to get some of the cumulative impact studies for parking and traffic flow done by then. And I guess that's probably something I can talk to Daniel and Ryan on after.
Sure. And
that's the goal for sure. Yeah.
To the chair, if I may.
Yes, Todd.
Mr. Spengler, feel free. I can be the point of contact, so you can update me on the status of all the projects that are in utero, and then I can simply convey that to members of the board, so at least they're apprised of the status of those items.
Yeah, and that'd be helpful. Then I guess my question would be, once we hopefully satisfy the board, what is the product? What does the timeline and process look like for your special permitting? So what happens next?
Sure. To the chair, if I may, I can answer that.
Yep.
So for all special permits within the Commonwealth, after the meeting is held, and let's just say for the sake of argument that the hearing is closed, the vote is taken and is held in favor of your application. From that point onward, there is a 20-day appeal period. Now, after that point, during that 20 days, you are free to begin any sort of construction work that you like. However, it is at your own risk.
Yep.
During that 20-day appeal period, if someone decides to bring it to effectively a lawsuit level and challenge it in court, then at that point you would have to simply cease all construction work inside until that hearing is adjudicated. But after that 20-day appeal period elapses, then you take the decision document that you have, bring it to the Registry of Deeds over in Worcester, and then at that point, that's when that special permit then becomes activated. And from there, you'll be able to use it with all your CCC procedures as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, like the next time they want to see, the main time that they want to see a copy of the special permit is when we request our post-provisional license.
Great. So that works out then.
Yeah. So we have a a decent risk tolerance in these things. We feel very confident in our business operations and our ability to execute. So, but you know, there's stranger things have happened. Right? So we just try to weigh all things as we move forward.
Of course, I just wanted to make sure and elucidate to you that during that 20-day appeal period, you are free to begin interior work and construction. However, keep in mind that during that 20-day appeal period, if an appeal is levied or a challenge is levied, at that point, you would have to simply stop all construction work until that appeal is adjudicated. Okay.
And Mike, you know, we'll certainly, you know, endeavor to try to move the process forward as quickly as we can from our side. You know, and so we're generally flexible on trying to fit you into meetings and
that's great.
accommodate you there.
And in addition, I'm so sorry.
Well, I'd say, one last thing I'd say is, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anyone from town out here objecting to this, so that's certainly a good sign.
Yeah.
That I think everyone feels that, you know, that's a fine use for that location. So,
To the chair, if I may.
Sure.
Piggybacking off of what you said, challenges within that 20-day appeal period are not exactly common creatures. I've seen maybe a handful in my time. Same with my mentors as well. They're not exactly common occurrences. However, I would be lax in duties not to at least inform.
Yeah, we understand for sure. Yeah. And like this will be our third special permit, so we've been through the process and understand. So. Great.
Okay. So if no one has anything else, then can someone make a motion to continue the special permit hearing until July, what did we say, 19th?
At 7. Yep. Bueller?
I will make a motion that we continue the special permit hearing for Michael Spengler of United Cultivation until July 19th at 7 o'clock.
Second.
Very good. With the second heard, I'll begin roll call vote. I'll begin with Chairman Gore.
Aye.
Mr. Romer.
Aye.
Mr. Grenner.
Aye.
And Mr. Nayland.
Aye.
Fantastic. With those present, motion carries. We will see you fine folks on the 19th then.
All right. Thank you. Have a great 4th of July.
You too.
Likewise.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Indeed.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
Okay. Moving along. Second item of business, continued definitive subdivision plan, Fosbrid, for Daniel Matha, on South Bolton Road.
To the chair.
Hey,
if I may.
Daniel.
Hey guys. Hey Michael, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Todd.
Todd, go ahead.
Yes, I was just about to say I did receive as of yesterday morning the check required from Mr. Matha for the furnishing of the peer review. I also heard from the peer reviewer from Niche Engineering that he expects to have peer review done and completed by the end of the week of the 4th. So at that point, we should be able to have some answers for all of us then.
Great. And the covenant / bond, was that complete? I can't remember.
That goes later on. That's later on in the process, good sir.
Okay.
So we have to complete the peer review portion, and then we move on to the other bond areas.
I thought that you had said that the attorneys were reviewing it or something.
Yes, town council has reviewed it, and he has sent communications to me. He hasn't found any particular issue with it. However, it's still very much a living thing, so I'll get an update for that within the week.
Okay.
I think he reviewed that, a few weeks ago, and I think that was fine, right?
Yes, he didn't have any outstanding issues, but I just wanted to double check.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, sir.
Okay, so are we doing anything tonight on this permit? We're waiting for the stormwater report from Niche, is that?
Yes, we're getting Niche's peer review. We just received funds to replenish the peer review, the 53G account there, because the quote that Niche provided was $6,500. However, the original value that was only in the 53 was only $3,000 or so. So that delta, Mr. Matha sent us a check for, which we received yesterday morning.
Okay.
Almost afternoon, but it was yesterday.
Once we receive that that report, Todd, what is left from our side for this?
Very little remains really at that point, provided the board is satisfied and acts upon the peer review contents. From there, there really isn't anything left aside from action from the board at that point,
Okay.
provided there's actions for you.
Yep.
That we already know that, for example, surety and all of that fun stuff.
Yep. Daniel, are you still working with Concom, or where?
Yes,
where are
they're
you
going to
with other-
take. Yeah, they're going to take the open space in fee.
Okay.
It's 13 acres of open space plus a bunch of restricted areas. So we get to almost 20 acres. So we should get an order of conditions. I can't remember when the next conservation meeting is.
Okay.
But soon.
It's soon approaching it.
Yep. Almost there.
Okay, great. So, and as you heard, our next meeting, we are July 19th.
Mhm.
Are you able to make that one?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
At that point, Mr. Chair, we should have Mitch's peer review letter present by then as evidence before.
Okay. Any other questions, Daniel or Todd? Anything else we need to discuss?
So
on
is
this?
that, so would that meeting be a meeting where we would move forward with the vote or whatever the next steps are?
It's conceivable. I really don't have a functioning crystal ball, so I can't tell you for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's no major concerns from that report, I'd be comfortable kind of moving forward at that point. I know this has been going on for a while here, and our next meeting wouldn't be until August. So, provided that report looks okay and things sort of make sense, we will.
Gotcha.
I can't promise, but we'll strive to.
Yep.
And
we got sorry, I don't know all the acronyms and all the language, but we did get the MEPA. We went through the EIR process for the MEPA, and that all went through. So we'll have the final certificate, I think, this Friday for the MEPA.
Very good.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. So if there's no other questions, then I'll make a motion to continue the definitive subdivision plan Fosbrid for Daniel Matha on South Bolton Road until July 19th.
Oh, second. Sorry.
Jinx. I think Austin beat you about, but it doesn't matter.
No, he did. There's no question. I was
Very
going to
good.
third eventually.
All right, I'll begin roll call vote to that effect. Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
Mr. Glenner,
Aye.
Mr. Nayland.
Aye.
Very good. With 4 to 5, motion carries. We will see you good folks on the 19th then.
Okay, Daniel. We'll talk to you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, son.
Okay.
Comment right along.
I think the next and final order of business is. Oh, do we want to? Do you have other? Let's do some minute approvals. Let's
Sure.
get those done.
Yeah. So very quickly, I burnt all of the midnight oil and the candle at all 3 ends to get all of those done. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get all of us fully caught up or as close as possible. Anticipation for the planning assistant that is, or the planning administrative assistant that should be hired relative soon. So there will be a batch of 6 for this particular meeting, and I'm going to endeavor very hard to get the remainder of minutes for our August meeting. I think we should be in pretty good shape to do so. So after the end of the August meeting, we should be exactly current, and hopefully the oncoming assistant should be able to start off from a blank slate.
Perfect. Do we need to do these one at a time, or can we do them all at once, Todd?
You can do them as a class. It's you know me, I like doing things a little bit cleanly, even if it sounds a little bit ludicrous. So we could hold them all as individual movements, or we could do them as a class. There's really no strict rule there.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? What's the purpose of the meeting approval? Can someone explain that?
Sure.
Why do meeting minutes have to be approved by the board?
Sure. Basically, they are a consensus of what has occurred, a formal consensus of what has occurred within the meeting stipulated. It's really the formal autopsy, the formal record of what has occurred within the meetings present. So they are the formal record. So if 25 years from now, the people of the planning board in 2048 want to find out what happened on this auspicious day, they can read those meeting minutes, and then get an appraisal of what occurred. That's about it.
I mean, they're public record, and for things like where we take votes on things, a perfect example would be at some point at Central Mill Estate, we had design review board come up with a light for the front entrance, and we apparently approved it and whatever. So like the record of that, you could find that in the minutes. Now, prior to COVID, we did all our meetings in person, and sometimes they were recorded and sometimes they weren't. Now all of our meetings are recorded and posted to YouTube. So that's generally where you can go. But to Todd's point, this is kind of the public record of the summary of the minutes. So what we're doing is, Todd sent these out a couple days ago. Hopefully everyone had a chance to kind of skim through them, and just say, yep, that looks right. You're not going to remember every detail, but as long as the general gist of things and the votes were correct, that's what we're approving here tonight.
Yes,
okay, I see.
It's also key to know that the minutes are not designed to be a transcript of all conversations that have occurred. It's
Correct.
supposed to be a distillation of that conversation, but primarily, and most importantly, the actions, the actions that were taken at the meeting, who made the motion, who seconded, and what the end result of said motion was. It's really the memorialization and the encapsulation of everything that happened there. So I know it's super exciting and fun reading, but it needs to be done.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. I'm curious. My approval of past meeting minutes when I was not on the board. I'm happy to do it, of course, as part of the board. But I kind of question the significance of me having to go through that and doing that as a
So
new member.
you will not do that. Oh, so none of these are from when you were on the board, huh?
Right.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
I would recommend abstaining for said motions.
Yeah.
If you prefer.
Yeah, I don't. Yes, you were there for none of these. Okay, so it's just going to be Bob, Eric, and myself.
Yes. And for
Okay.
these simple motions, a simple majority is enough. We don't need a super majority to agree on what was reality upon that day. So it's not so bad.
So Todd, while I appreciate your attention to detail, I am going to make a motion to approve all of the meeting minutes from December 7th, 2022 until March 8th, 2023.
And I will enthusiastically second that motion.
Gründlichkeit am besten. Very good. Okay. I will begin roll call vote with that motion second. I will begin with Chairman Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
Mr. Glennon,
Abstain.
and Mr. Nayland.
All right.
With 3 out of 5 present, the motion carries over simple majority. Thank you very much, folks.
Okay. Todd, you have anything you want to talk about with sorry, before we do town subdivision stuff. So July 19th is our next meeting. Let's set our August meeting before I forget about it. So I can't do the week of the 9th. The 16th or the 23rd would work for me. If 16th would be kind of a month from our July meeting. So
16th is a little tricky for me,
Is
but
it?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, my birthday's the 17th, and I like to take some days before and after.
Whoa, look at that.
Just to go. I know. Just for
I can do the 20. So if we do the 23rd, so our next meeting starting in September would be not the 6th. It looks like it would be the 13th. So if we did August 23rd, I think that would work for me.
The 23rd is
for me
better.
too.
The 23rd is better for me.
Okay. Bob?
Yeah,
Yeah, it works.
Okay.
let me just plug that in right quick. All right.
So I think we typically do approve a schedule, so I will make a motion to set our summer meetings for July 19th at 7 o'clock and August 23rd at 7 o'clock.
I'll second.
Very good. With the motion having been seconded, I will begin a roll call vote. I'll begin with Chairman Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
Mr. Glenner,
Aye.
Mr. Nayland.
Aye.
Very good. That's motion has been set. Very good.
Okay. Now, finally, Todd, do you have any updates you want to talk about with subdivision regulations, or is this something you're kind of still researching?
Yeah, if you recall, I did send a brief paragraph to everyone. Gosh, this must have been coming up on a week or so ago. I did go ahead and coalesce some language that is more or less an echo of some surrounding area provisions that cover that. That cover the.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you
roads
sent
and
this to
stuff.
Brian Falk?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. He said he would tear into it and then get back to me. He hasn't replied yet, but given that language that was assembled is effectively in resonance with all of the surrounding areas that have similar 81Q provisions, I don't foresee any issue, given that it currently exists within. It currently exists within, I believe it's Harvard. It's almost part and parcel taken directly from Harvard. However, I'm still awaiting formal response from town council, but I don't anticipate any deviance from
So
existing.
out of curiosity, I was going to write you about this, but I thought it'd be easier just to talk about it.
Sure.
The 18-month period
Yes.
is like, so the first problem again, like I'm looking, I'm seeing, would this have helped us with any of our favorite subdivisions? And I don't think so. One of them being that, it's 18 months after the completion of the construction, right? And so it's like, we're technically not even completed with construction yet,
True,
right?
true. In our favorite subdivision, that's correct.
Yeah.
There is a rationale for that 18 months, as I was discussing with Mr. Grenner before the meeting initiated. The reason for that is primarily for that 12-month seasoning period after the subdivision is fully completed. Then the existing road, the roads that are present need to season for an entire 12-month period before they would be eligible to be voted upon. Providing for an 18-month duration allows a little bit more time to stress test those roads that were newly installed and allow for any issues to kind of percolate and rise to be recognized.
Also, it's not really 12 months. It's over winter is our language, right?
Yes, that's the overwintering. But it's commonly accepted to have it be a 12-month standard typically. But that's also, as I mentioned, it's in resonance with other area communities and what their 81Q provisions stipulate. So that's why.
Actually, I have a quick question. I think that the language states that's during construction it's maintained, right?
Yes.
So considering that, I guess Century Mills hasn't finished construction, they're still in construction. Wouldn't they have had to have maintained the roads all the way through until present day?
Had that particular bit of language been implemented? Yes.
So CME is maintaining their roads. Like that's not the issue. Like the residents are being charged, and the developer is, or one of his subsidiaries is maintaining the road. So they have snow removal. That's not the problem. The problem we have is at Moderator Way, where the developer stopped maintaining the roads. He's basically like, I'm walking away from this.
I see.
So,
and it's important to know also, I know, even though Mike, I know you know this, but for the sake, Mr. Grenner, this also does not apply retroactively. It's only for future residential subdivisions with related issues.
And we get that, but I mean, I think the point is, had this language been in place, would anything have been different? And I don't think it would have been. But I mean, I'm happy putting it in there to make it, more legal or whatever, but it's like, I don't think this would have helped us. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
The thing that I like about having this in there is that the applicant, upon submitting their completed application, they have to acquiesce to all and acknowledge all of the language within the subdivision rules and regulations. So because of that, it provides a basis of saying, well, in the case of something does go a little sideways, or if any future developer decides to walk away or kind of abandon their responsibilities, we have that 81Q provision in place to then kind of hold their feet to the fire and hold them accountable off of.
So do you think this would have given us more legal authority had this been in there?
I don't like Monday morning quarterbacking. I really don't, given especially that I wasn't here for when all this really began to come to the fore. But I do think it would be better to have it than not have it. That's for sure.
Well, why don't we just ask Brian?
Be good.
Yeah.
I don't.
To me, listening to the latter, 25% of the moderator way discussion, since I've been on the board, the residents, for lack of anybody else to blame the town because they're paying taxes. And if there were something in the agreement with the developer up front that made it very clear that A, the town is not responsible, and B, the developer is, then I think we would have, frankly, a much, whether or not it would be a better legal posture position, it certainly would enhance our relationship with residents.
Agreed. It does take a little bit of the ink out of the water. It makes it harder to obfuscate exactly whose responsibility lies where. If that makes sense.
But on the other hand, I would think, and again, this is a question for council, that it would give the residents the ability to sue the developer for significant damage.
That's a fair angle. Yes. I am not counsel, but it would stand to reason that they would have damages that they could seek recompense for. Yeah.
And back to the 18-month period, it's like, so in the case of moderator way, 18 months passes, and then what is the now nobody's responsible for it?
Well, isn't it until accepted by the town?
Yes.
Yeah, whichever comes first.
Whichever comes first.
Yeah.
So after 18 months, where this says no longer that the applicant is responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Todd, what I asked you at one point is if whenever we have a roadway that hasn't yet been accepted, that we require that development to have an HOA, where the HOA covers those costs. And I don't know if they have that at Moderator Way, but it's like that's that's what CME does. CME has an HOA; they all pay in fees to it, and the HOA, pays to get the snow removed and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's the same thing at Moderator Way, but like they should have something like that in place, especially for this upcoming year, because the town's not going to do it and the developer's not going to do it.
I don't know if we have I don't believe we have the authority to mandate that.
So, and I think you said that to me before, and I agree that's probably the case, but like maybe if we had language such that, HOA, like even in this, like an HOA or something is responsible at that point for non-public roads. I don't know what, again, like.
I don't think we have I don't think we have the authority to make a mandate of that effect. However, I can continue to do research and see if there's any existing 81Q provisions in place that have longer durations than 18 months. 18 months was the longest I found, and I checked, probably half a dozen of like kind area communities that have 81Q provisions. It's a substantial amount of legwork to hunt them down, because I pulled up a map of Massachusetts, narrowed it down by similar demographics and economic data and size and bucolic nature and population density per capita. And then from there, zoomed in on ones that are closest and like kind, and then tore into their subdivision rules and regs and then compared them versus what we have existing. So it took some time. And the most substantive duration I found was 18 months.
Well, why deal with a specified period of time? Why not just till the road is accepted by the town, full stop?
Yeah.
It's a fair approach.
I don't know what the 18 months does for you.
I agree with that statement, Bob. I think 18 months to a big developer is probably not a disincentive for them to do what they're going to do. So I think I think I agree with until it is approved by the town.
Sure, sure. And I can continue looking to find comparative towns to see if they have anything like that in place. I'll just continue plugging away at. I just didn't want to throw an entire work week at fixing one addressing.
No, and I don't, I certainly understand that, having done a lot of that recently myself. But I
And I
think
love
ask Brian if just removing the 18 months would run afoul of the Attorney General.
Sure
or-
thing.
Or even asking Brian, what if, whether it be this language or some other language, what would have helped us better in moderator way?
I agree.
Because that's ultimately, that's the question I'm like, we apparently have a hole in our process, and what can we do to protect the town from
Yeah,
that?
again, as I mentioned, I'm waiting to hear a response from town council. When I get that, I'll ask him, where are some blind spots that we can shore up?
Yeah.
So I'll keep all of you guys apprised via email once I receive that.
Todd, could I
Okay.
ask one last quick question about the language? I think it says explicitly snow removal. Is that
Mhm.
understood to also be sanding and salting and all that good stuff? Or
I
is
can
it,
include that, but it's part of the process. But I think that's a fair thing. We can just add that in just to add some clarity. Sure. Removal sanding, and we'll also put say chemical de-icers as well, just to keep us complete.
Well, if there's language that is one level higher about the safety and
Inclusive.
passability of the roads.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be specific about,
No.
what
Then
the,
we'll figure out some other way to get around it.
Yeah, exactly. There are clauses within there in service to public safety and welfare, etc.
Yeah.
So I think that's defensible off that alone.
You can put an EG after it if you want.
Sure. They're lawyers. They're used to it.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's going to be in good shape. Now the process for that is it's a simple public hearing process. So whenever we decide to pull the trigger on that, thankfully we have a wee bit of time, but not a whole heck of a lot. I would like to see that implemented at least by, let's say, early fall. I'd like to see if we could do that. Say early fall to maybe middle September, if I don't want to be too presumptive. Something like that would not go amiss, given that late September tends to be when some snow can start.
This
Can you-
isn't a town meeting. This isn't a
No.
bylaw change, right? Yeah,
No.
this is just
No. Rules and regulations, those are not bylaw revisions. These are simply internal processes. It just requires a standard public hearing process.
okay.
It's not a big kerfuffle. It's a minor kerfuffle.
Okay.
Well, if you could get something out of Brian, so that we could at least review it just prior to the meeting on the 19th, I think that would be a good start.
Agreed.
That would give us some time to make a revision if necessary,
Yeah.
and then go for a September review hearing.
Agreed. Sure. I'll poke him with a stick again and see where he's at with that.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything that they wanted to go over tonight? I know we've kind of had a long meeting so far, so I'm kind of inclined to keep it brief.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Well, I'd say is yeah. Any other things? Maybe we can. I don't know what we have on the 19th besides this. Well, I guess we've got South Bolton Road as well.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm gonna unless anyone objects, I'll say we cap it here tonight and pick up again in July.
Do I hear a second?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Bob, I'm taking that. You're the second this time.
Yes, second.
Very good. I'll begin a roll call vote. I'll begin with Chairman Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Romer,
Aye.
Mr. Grenner,
Aye.
and Mr. Nayland.
Aye.
And with that, my good sirs, I will see you all on the 19th.
Okay. We'll see you in July. Have a
Have a
good
good July
holiday,
4th.
everyone.